Before we begin this video, full disclosure, I received a key for AIdventure on keymailer from Lyaaaaa games. So do keep that in mind during this review. Let me assure you that that doesn't mean I'm going to give this game unending praise. This video is going to be quite critical. Okay, let's get into it. I remember when AIdventure was my go-to after work. I'd have an absolute pig of a day dealing with customers and their problems, and then come home, kick my shoes off, and explore the world of AI-generated stories, swaths of scenarios written by other users, or my own wild and unpredictable journeys. And for a long time, that was my jam. But one day, an exploit on AIdventure revealed that everybody's stories were stored in an unencrypted, plain-text form, and were accessible to pretty much anybody. So what did the head honchos over at AIdventure do? Instead of addressing everybody's concerns about lack of encryption, they instead hired moderators to read everybody's stories. Unsurprisingly, they found that folks were using AI to generate things that they, or their funding partners, didn't like. So they introduced all sorts of draconian rules and filters to the website that essentially crippled the AI. Not only that, they even claimed that they were doing it because it was the right thing to do. The moral thing. AIdventure's users weren't having it. The whole subreddit turned into baked Mr. Krabs memes and shouting contests. And that's why Novel AI was introduced to the world, as a big middle finger to AIdventure, proving that in just under 6 months or so, a bunch of complete nobodies could create viable competition. And I get the feeling, given how AIdventure is also marketed as an uncensored AI without moderation, perhaps Lyaaaaa Games was inspired by the events that transpired over at AIdventure as well. When a website very quickly sours their reputation, upsets their community, and ultimately leaves their website to become forgotten, naturally, people will be inspired to take up the mantle. Unlike services such as Novel AI, AIdventure doesn't run in a web browser, and you're not talking to some data center somewhere. It instead runs on your local machine, meaning all your stories are generated on your own hardware, only accessible to you, and any agencies like the FBI or GCHQ who have a backdoor into your computer. I'm kidding, of course. They have a front door into your computer. In all seriousness, though, because AIdventure runs on your local machine, this is not something you can easily run on a potato. This is where someone may be more inclined to check out a service like Novel AI instead. Although it uses a subscription, it promises to store your stories in an encrypted form and to not read them. However, if you don't feel comfortable writing your highly immoral fantasies into your web browser, AIdventure may be the right option for you. So I'm going to break this review into the good things, followed by the bad things. First up, the positives. Being able to run the local generation will always be a huge thing for me. I didn't buy a 4070 Ti to play the latest games. Well, I did, but I really bought one to use locally run AI-powered tools, Automatic 1111, Cobalt CPP Roop. These tools are all free, but I am open to exploring paid AI-powered tools if they offer creative solutions to problems. It is also worth mentioning that on Steam and itch.io, AIdventure has no censorship. Buying a copy on itch.io provides the user with a Steam key, and is the best way to support Lyaaaaa. And with no moderators reading your stories, you can get as freaky as you want. Now, while there isn't much content available on it right now, having Steam Workshop support is a really tasty feature. You can acquire scenarios, lore books, and combine scenario and lore books together. In other words, users have gone to the effort of populating the AI with plot, characters, features, and story outlines for you. You merely need to subscribe to an option, and it will download into the game automatically for use immediately. Very reminiscent of AIdventure's story-sharing features. AIdventure is similar to other AI-based games on Steam, such as AI Roguelike. Where AIdventure is different to AI Roguelike, for example, is that it doesn't try to juggle text and image generation simultaneously. Instead, your story exists as text only. And the text generation, while lacking for me personally, is inexplicably quick. Because AIdventure has a one-time fee to use, there is no service subscription or cloud, No having to pay for tokens for X number of generations that may run out during the term of your subscription. Everything is generated locally with no limits on content or amount generated outside of the scope of your hardware itself. Now, unfortunately, the rest of what I have to say about AIdventure fits into the category of negative sentiment and critical constructive feedback. I'll do my best to be fair, but I have a lot to say, and I feel quite strongly about some of this, so I hope that Lyaaaaa doesn't take anything I say as an attack or dig. It's all in the interest of making AIdventure a better tool. So by its very nature, AI stuff is very hardware dependent. I'm concerned that a lot of users may end up buying a game that barely functions, spend more than 2 hours trying to troubleshoot, which may leave them unable to seek a refund due to being outside of the Steam refund window. And recommending users purchase the game from itch.io to get a free Steam key muddies the process of seeking a refund even further. I will say, though, there is a demo offered on itch.io, so I thoroughly recommend that any viewers interested in this game try the demo first to ensure it will play nicely with their hardware. I just don't know what the demo features, what the limitations and restrictions are. So another issue I had out of the gate. AIdventure requires the user to make a firewall edit change on Windows. This is usually facilitated by a pop-up window that prompts the user to choose the necessary firewall setting. However, the first time I tried to run the game and start a server, this dialog didn't show up, leaving me stuck trying to figure out how to get the local server to talk to the game. Thankfully, the game does feature a message about this in the help menu, and after reading it, the next time I fired the program up, I was presented with the prompt. Still, it initially led to several minutes of fruitless troubleshooting. Another downside to AIdventure is that the generative models themselves have to be downloaded within the program itself. Also, with the supported models being fairly limited, you may not be able to inject other models you might already use locally on your machine. Out of curiosity, I tried to get my favorite GPT tool, Kobold to load the models downloaded by AIdventure, but it did not work. It wasn't able to. Wrong format. The selection of scenarios available within AIdventure by default are quite restrictive and all have specific starts that do not change. The user has to manually edit or remove these introductions if they want the scenario to begin differently, although there is a button to do that before running the scenario. I do remember presets within AI Dungeon where you could enter names and sentences before starting more freeform scenarios that offered you creative freedom when starting a story. Something like that would improve AIdventure, or at the very least, it wouldn't hurt to have. The recommended model for AIdventure, GPT-Neo 2.7b Picard, sometimes struggles to understand even the basics of what I'm asking it for. Through messing around with the software, I've really come to realize that AIdventure works best if you take the time to create your own lorebook, fleshing out as much information as possible. Without it, the responses you get will be incredibly simple, oftentimes quite repetitive, and offer seemingly no creative output. While using your model of choice, to change the AI settings you must return to the main menu. This means closing the server and the session, going to the AI menu and clicking your chosen model. You cannot tweak values such as repetition, punishment, token size, whether to allow or disallow incomplete sentences, or creativity while the model is loaded. I would also say that repetition is simply not punished enough by default. After setting punishment to 1.6 from the default of 1.1, I finally get unique and interesting developments in the story, but it still seems mostly devoid of logic or reason. Quite often, the chosen model generates 2 sentences that are very simple, then proceeds to repeat the text I've already fed it. In theory, the model will attempt to write in the way you write, so changing writing style should change the result. However, while that does produce more flowery prose, it also produces text that makes even less sense. Now, besides the nice interface and the character stats for dice rolls, there really isn't anything here that Kobold cannot do. It also supports more models, including the recently released DeepSeek models. Also, that Kobold GUI is free, and you can run local image generation alongside it with simple integration. AIdventure would benefit from adding support for cloud services that you may already be subscribed to, such as Novel AI, simply acting as a front end or providing image and audio generation to read your stories back to you. These features already exist in Novel AI, and presumably there is some kind of API related to these cloud-based AI services that could be leveraged to add these features into AIdventure. Otherwise, the game itself is just text on a screen, fine for those with a strong imagination, but kind of boring to everyone else. The interface is a little finicky, with windows that open on screen, but also windows that sometimes open behind the game, requiring the user to Alt-Tab. Apart from the angled boxes on screen, it's honestly a little bland. While you can adjust the fonts and colours, the default font is a very futuristic font, which feels a little bit out of place. You do get a preview after selecting a font, but it would be nice to have a preview of the fonts when viewing them in the drop-down list, and the option to import a font or use one from your local machine would be really cool. When you fire up AIdventure for the first time, the automatic detection setup still asks you for your VRAM and RAM, despite surely being able to look that up itself. If someone dismisses this menu because they have no idea what they're doing, they'll end up with something like 500 meg of VRAM and 500 meg of standard RAM allocated to the program, resulting in small and generic responses, or perhaps not even being able to load a generation model at all. I have had the server refuse to start sometimes, with the only choice being to force quit the game from Steam itself. Thankfully, that was only initially, and the problem has not recurred since. I could probably let that slide as a coincidence. When it comes to quality of life improvements, I would like to be able to delete a story from the Load Story menu instead of having to navigate to the Saves folder manually in Windows Explorer. AIdventure has a long way to go just yet to be a worthwhile investment at its current asking price. However, with steady updates since its release, frequent 25% off price reductions during Steam sales, it does occasionally go on sale. I think it will be fairly clear to viewers of this video whether or not this is a tool they'd be interested in checking out. So I'm going to spare the discussion of recommendations or giving point-based scores. AIdventure is a tool I believe contains a lot of promise, but as of right now, offers no kind of special sauce that other tools don't already offer, and for free. Thank you, Lyaaaaa Games for the key, and thank you, Keymailer, for the opportunity. This has been Escape Route British. Thanks for watching. Until next time, if we live that long.